The table, a seemingly simple piece of furniture, but one whose history reveals much about human ingenuity and societal change. This isn't a story of invention by a single person, but rather an unfolding narrative spanning millennia, reflecting shifts in technology, social customs, and our understanding of the world around us. Early humans faced a fundamental challenge: how to interact with their environment without direct contact with the ground. The earliest raised surfaces weren't tables as we know them today, but low platforms and stone slabs used in ancient Egypt and Mesopotamia during the 3rd millennium BCE. These served practical purposes like protecting food from pests and moisture, functioning more as work surfaces than movable furniture. Heavy and fixed, they underscored their role as essential utilities within a space. The concept truly began to evolve with the ancient Greeks. They introduced separate, four-legged tables specifically for dining, a departure from those earlier fixed platforms. The Romans further developed this idea, creating what they called mensas, movable dining tables that became standard fixtures in wealthier homes. Roman artisans incorporated bronze, iron, and carved woods like maple, adding decorative elements to the table's design. This era marked a shift toward functional specialization. Small, round tables for serving drinks or displaying ornaments emerged alongside larger dining surfaces. The Romans solidified the table's form as a distinct piece of furniture, a standard that continues to influence designs today. Following the classical period, the medieval era introduced a new emphasis on portability and space efficiency, driven by the multi-purpose function of great halls and castles. These large spaces needed to transition quickly from banqueting areas to courts or sleeping quarters, making permanent dining furniture impractical. This necessity led directly to the invention and widespread adoption of the trestle table. The trestle design represented a significant structural innovation, utilizing a long detachable plank laid across 2 or 3 supporting crosspieces. This allowed for rapid assembly and storage when not in use. The Renaissance and subsequent centuries saw the table evolve from a utilitarian object back into a highly refined piece of permanent furniture, reflecting a return to specialized rooms and fixed dining areas. Craftsmanship flourished, yielding diverse forms like the console table, which was designed to stand against a wall, and the smaller coffee table, which emerged much later to accommodate new social rituals. Furniture makers formalized intricate styles, treating the table as a canvas for detailed carving and inlay work. The Industrial Revolution fundamentally altered the table's journey, shifting production from individual artisan workshops to factory assembly lines. New machinery allowed for the rapid cutting and joining of wood, significantly lowering costs and increasing availability. This transition accelerated the diversification of table types, creating specialized designs for libraries, offices, and even laboratories. Contemporary manufacturing continues this trend, with techniques like veneer application making high-quality surfaces widely accessible. The principles of the medieval trestle table are echoed in modern flat-pack furniture, where efficiency and ease of assembly remain paramount. The table, as we understand it, a flat surface supported by legs, didn't simply appear. Its emergence was a gradual process rooted in fundamental human needs: the need to keep food and materials separate from the ground. Early precursors weren't furniture at all, but rather low-raised platforms built directly into homes or temples. These structures, dating back to the 3rd millennium BCE in Mesopotamia and ancient Egypt, served as work surfaces for preparing food or as simple altars. They were constructed of heavy, locally sourced materials like stone slabs or stacked clay bricks, emphasizing their role as static utilities within a space. The shift towards distinct movable tables began with the Greeks. They introduced separate, four-legged tables specifically intended for dining, moving away from fixed platforms. Romans further refined this concept, creating what they called mensa, portable dining tables that became common in wealthier homes. Roman artisans incorporated bronze, iron, and carved woods like maple into their construction, experimenting with leg designs beyond simple supports. Animal shapes and intricate carvings began to appear. This marked a move toward functional specialization. Small, round tables for serving drinks or displaying ornaments emerged alongside dedicated surfaces for writing and games. The Romans solidified the table's form as a separate piece of furniture, elevating it from mere utility to an indicator of social status. Following the Roman period, medieval societies prioritized portability and space efficiency. Large halls often served multiple purposes, necessitating tables that could be quickly moved or stored. This need spurred the development of the trestle table, a long plank supported by detachable crosspieces. The design allowed for rapid assembly and disassembly, maximizing usable floor space. These trestles were engineered with flared feet to ensure stability under heavy loads, reflecting an evolving understanding of structural support. The trestle design's practicality extended beyond mere dining. These surfaces served as impromptu workstations for scribes and artisans, facilitating tasks requiring a stable platform. Evidence suggests that variations on the trestle form appeared across Europe, adapting to regional timber availability and construction techniques. Northern European examples frequently employed heavier oak timbers, reflecting the prevalence of this wood in those regions, while southern tables might incorporate lighter varieties like ash or beech. The design simplicity also made it amenable to modification. Some trestles featured integrated benches along their length, further maximizing seating capacity for large gatherings. While primarily functional, these tables occasionally received rudimentary decoration, carved initials or simple geometric patterns etched into the plank surface, though such embellishments remained uncommon compared to later periods. The widespread adoption of trestle tables underscores a prioritization of adaptability and resourcefulness in medieval domestic life. The need to elevate objects above the dirt floor initially drove the development of what would become tables. Early evidence from ancient Egypt points toward the use of low raised platforms and stone slabs dating back to the 3rd millennium BCE. These structures were often built directly into homes or temples, serving to protect food and materials. They functioned primarily as work surfaces for food preparation or as low altars for religious offerings rather than movable dining furniture. Alongside these fixed platforms, Egyptians utilized what we recognize as tables, though their function extended beyond mere dining. Alabaster offering tables are a revealing example. These were not simply surfaces, they were integral components of funerary rituals. The smooth stone surface would be placed in tombs and laden with food offerings intended to sustain the deceased in the afterlife. Evidence suggests these tables held symbolic significance, representing a connection between the living world and the realm of the dead. They were carefully crafted objects, often adorned with incised decoration, suggesting their importance as ritual items. While they served a practical purpose by providing a clean surface for offerings, their presence within tombs underscores a dual role, both functional utility and spiritual significance. The emphasis on ritualistic function continued to shape Egyptian table design. Evidence suggests certain tables were associated with particular gods or goddesses, blurring the line between functional object and sacred symbol. The incised decorations found on alabaster offering tables often depict scenes of daily life, agricultural abundance, or funerary processions, reinforcing their connection to both the living world and the afterlife journey. These depictions likely served as visual prayers intended to secure divine favor for the deceased. The choice of materials held significance. Alabaster, prized for its translucence and perceived purity, was considered a fitting material for objects dedicated to the gods. Its smooth surface facilitated the application of oils and resins used in ritual cleansing practices that imbued these tables with spiritual power. The careful selection of materials and decorative motifs underscores the evolving role of the table as more than just a platform. It became a conduit between realms, a testament to faith, and a tangible expression of cultural values. The inherent stability of these offering tables likely contributed to their symbolic association with permanence and cosmic order, concepts central to Egyptian religious beliefs. While alabaster's visual appeal was undoubtedly a factor, its perceived connection to purity further enhanced its suitability for ritualistic objects. The construction techniques themselves reveal an understanding of material properties. The careful joining of multiple pieces of alabaster, often secured with resin adhesives, demonstrates both practical skill and a desire to create durable artifacts. Evidence suggests some tables incorporated wooden supports, a pragmatic adaptation reflecting the expense of working solely with this precious stone. These composite constructions highlight the balance between aesthetic ideals and economic realities in Egyptian craftsmanship. The table, in its most basic form, is a horizontal surface supported by vertical elements, a deceptively simple design that has evolved significantly across millennia. Early examples weren't necessarily furniture at all, but rather low, raised platforms and stone slabs used in ancient Egypt and Mesopotamia, dating back to the 3rd millennium BCE. These served as work surfaces for food preparation or as low altars for religious offerings, often built directly into structures. In contrast to these earlier fixed surfaces, classical Greece saw a shift towards separate, movable tables specifically intended for dining. These were initially low, designed for diners reclining on couches and brought in and out of the room as needed. The design reflected emerging social customs and a growing emphasis on specialized furniture. While details about construction are scarce, it's clear that Greek tables represented a departure from earlier utilitarian platforms towards objects with a more defined purpose within domestic life. This era marked an important step toward functional specialization, moving beyond general utility to cater to specific activities. These early Greek tables were typically constructed from wood, although bronze examples are also documented, particularly for more formal settings or among wealthier households. The limited evidence suggests a preference for simple joinery techniques, reflecting both available resources and a focus on functionality over elaborate ornamentation during this period. While specific dimensions remain largely unknown, their low height underscores the reclining posture adopted by diners during symposia, a practice deeply embedded in Greek social customs. These gatherings were not merely about sustenance. They served as venues for intellectual discourse, artistic performances, and political maneuvering among the elite male citizenry. The presence of specialized tables within these symposium spaces further highlights the evolving role of furniture beyond basic utility. Britannia notes that Roman tables sometimes featured legs carved into animal shapes or sphinxes, indicating a developing trend toward decorative elements, a potential influence from Greek artistry. The increasing prevalence of specialized tables also reflected evolving dining customs and social hierarchies within Greek society. Britannia notes that Roman tables sometimes featured legs carved into animal shapes or sphinxes, indicating a developing trend toward decorative elements, a potential influence from Greek artistry. While such elaborate ornamentation remained rare in Greece itself during this period, the presence of monopodia, small, single-footed tables, suggests an increasing emphasis on serving and presentation within dining spaces. These smaller tables likely held food offerings, drinks, or other items intended to enhance the symposium experience for guests. Evidence 13 indicates that Roman tables sometimes incorporated exotic woods like cedar, further highlighting a developing trend toward luxury materials among wealthier households, a potential aspiration for some Greek elites. The increasing complexity of table design and usage underscores the growing importance of dining as a social ritual within classical Greece, extending beyond mere sustenance to encompass displays of status and refined taste. The table, as a distinct piece of furniture, evolved considerably within ancient Greece and Rome. While earlier civilizations utilized raised platforms for work or offerings, the Romans developed the mensa, a movable dining table that became a standard fixture in wealthier homes. These Roman tables frequently incorporated exotic woods like cedar, suggesting an aspiration toward luxury materials among affluent households. The construction of the mensa shifted away from purely functional design and embraced richer materials. Bronze, iron, and exquisitely carved maple or citrus wood were common choices. Craftsmanship focused on sophisticated leg designs, turned, tapered, or even sculpted into animal shapes, sometimes crafted entirely from marble or precious metals. This marked a departure from earlier emphasis on stability. Now, tables served as indicators of social status and opportunities for artistic expression. Alongside these grand dining tables, smaller forms emerged. Monopodia, single-footed tables, became popular for serving drinks or displaying ornaments, further solidifying the table's role in Roman dining culture beyond mere sustenance to encompass displays of refinement. The Romans effectively standardized the four-legged table form that influences furniture design today. The association between fine tables and social standing became deeply ingrained in Roman culture. Owning an ornate mensa signaled wealth and refined taste. While these elaborate examples were reserved for the elite, smaller, more utilitarian versions existed for less affluent households, though they still reflected a move away from purely functional design toward greater aesthetic consideration. Even simpler tables began to incorporate some degree of decorative carving or detailing, demonstrating the pervasive influence of Roman artistic sensibilities. The standardization also facilitated trade and craftsmanship. Skilled artisans specialized in creating legs, tops, and other components which were then assembled locally, contributing to diffusion of Roman furniture styles. Roman tables frequently incorporated intricate marquetry, inlaying different colored woods or precious stones into the surface for decorative patterns. These embellishments served as aesthetic enhancements and demonstrations of wealth and artistic skill. Elaborate examples utilized imported exotic species like ebony, showcasing a Roman appetite for luxury goods sourced from across their empire. Silver or bronze fittings on table legs added to an impression of opulence. These details highlight how the mensa transcended its utilitarian purpose, becoming an integral element in projecting social status and cultural identity within Roman society. Following the Roman period, a new emphasis on portability and space efficiency emerged across medieval Europe, driven by the multi-purpose function of great halls and castles. These large spaces needed to transition quickly from banqueting areas to courts or sleeping quarters, making permanent dining furniture impractical. This necessity led directly to the invention and widespread adoption of the trestle table. The trestle design represented a significant structural innovation. It utilized a long, detachable plank laid across 2 or 3 supporting crosspieces called trestles. This simple engineering allowed the entire assembly to be rapidly taken down and stacked against a wall when the meal was finished. The ability to disassemble the unit reduced clutter and maximized usable floor space in a period when rooms served multiple functions. Tables of this type were constructed from massive boards of oak or elm, affixed to the trestles by pegs that could be removed for disassembly. Large medieval dining tables often accommodated an entire household, with the master and his guests seated at a dais beneath a canopy, while others sat at tables placed perpendicular to it. Occasionally, more elaborate examples existed. Charlemagne, for instance, possessed silver and gold tables, though these were likely covered in thin sheets of metal rather than solid precious materials. The legs of the trestle supports were often designed with flared or splayed feet to ensure lateral stability under a heavy load. The trestle design's inherent flexibility would later influence the development of drop-leaf and gate-leg tables, demonstrating a continuing need for adaptable furniture within constrained spaces. Britannica notes that while small tables were used in private apartments, large medieval dining halls often featured rectangular tables arranged around a dais where the master and his guests sat beneath a canopy. Others occupied tables perpendicular to this central arrangement. One surviving example of a 15th-century round table exists at Winchester Castle, though such forms appear to have been reserved for occasional use. Tables constructed with attached legs, joined by stretchers close to the floor, began appearing in the 15th century and were fixed in size, presenting challenges for relocation within a hall. An innovation known as a drawer top emerged during the 16th century. These tables consisted of 3 leaves, 2 of which could be retracted beneath the central section when extended on runners. Materials included oak, elm, walnut, and cherry. Britannia also mentions that Charlemagne possessed silver and gold tables, likely constructed with wooden cores covered in thin metal sheets. The drawer-top mechanism's complexity reflected a broader trend toward more elaborate woodworking techniques, though simpler variations continued to be produced for less affluent households. Britannica notes that during the Elizabethan era, tables increasingly mirrored prevailing decorative styles. A typical drawer table might feature vase-shaped legs terminating in Ionic capitals. Tables intended for occasional use, such as those designed for tea service, began appearing, demonstrating an increasing specialization of furniture based on evolving social customs. Contact with Eastern cultures spurred interest in lacquered surfaces, though large dining tables exhibited fewer stylistic changes during this period. Following the classical period, the medieval era introduced a new emphasis on portability and space efficiency, driven by the multi-purpose function of great halls and castles. These large spaces needed to transition quickly from banqueting areas to courts or sleeping quarters, making permanent dining furniture impractical. This necessity led directly to the invention and widespread adoption of the trestle table. The trestle design represented a significant structural innovation, utilizing a long, detachable plank laid across 2 or 3 supporting crosspieces called trestles. This simple engineering allowed the entire assembly to be rapidly taken down and stacked against a wall when the meal was finished. The ability to disassemble the unit reduced clutter and maximized the usable floor space in a period when rooms served multiple functions. The legs of the trestle supports were often designed with flared or splayed feet to ensure lateral stability under the heavy load of a communal feast. Tables were typically constructed from oak or elm, readily available materials suited for this purpose. Growing technical sophistication meant that from the middle of the 16th century onward, tables began to reflect more closely than before general design tendencies and social context. Britannica notes that Charlemagne possessed silver and gold tables, likely constructed with wooden cores covered in thin metal sheets, though trestle designs remained common. Tables with attached legs, joined by heavy stretchers fixed close to the floor, appeared in the 15th century. These were of fixed size and heavy to move. An ingenious device known as a drawer top made it possible to double the length of a table. The top was composed of 3 leaves, 2 of which could be placed under the third and extended on runners when required. Such tables were usually made of oak or elm, but sometimes of walnut or cherry. The increasing formality of life during the feudal period also influenced table design, with tables taking on greater social significance. Britannica notes that large halls often featured a rectangular table upon which the master and guests would dine beneath a canopy, while retainers were seated at smaller tables arranged perpendicular to this central piece. One surviving example from the 15th century is located at Winchester Castle. However, circular tables remained reserved for occasional use. The construction of these larger tables typically involved massive oak or elm boards secured to trestles by pegs, allowing for disassembly when not in use. Tables with attached legs and heavy stretchers fixed close to the floor appeared during the 15th century, though their size and weight limited mobility. By the 16th century, draw tops became common, enabling a table's length to be doubled through extending leaves on runners. Following the medieval period, a shift occurred in table design, moving away from the practicality of trestle tables toward more permanent and ornate furnishings. The large halls that had previously accommodated communal dining arrangements began to give way to specialized rooms within dwellings, diminishing the need for easily disassembled tables. This coincided with broader trends in Renaissance art and architecture, which emphasized symmetry, balance, and decorative detail. Tables transitioned from being primarily functional objects to items reflecting social status and aesthetic taste. The 16th century saw the introduction of tables with attached legs and heavy stretchers fixed close to the floor. These were less mobile than their trestle predecessors, but offered greater stability. A notable innovation of this era was the draw top, which allowed for a table's length to be doubled through extending leaves on runners. This feature provided flexibility in accommodating varying numbers of diners while maintaining a more compact footprint when not fully extended. Tables crafted from oak or elm remained common, though walnut and cherry began to appear as well, reflecting a growing appreciation for finer materials. The design itself started incorporating elements characteristic of the Renaissance style, a move away from purely utilitarian forms toward greater visual complexity. The increasing sophistication of taste and higher standards of living also spurred a diversification of table forms beyond the large dining tables, catering to specialized functions. Tables crafted from walnut or cherry continued to be favored for their aesthetic qualities, often incorporating decorative elements characteristic of the Elizabethan era. Vase-shaped legs terminating in Ionic capitals became common. A notable innovation was the draw top, which allowed for a doubling of length through extending leaves on runners. This design principle persisted into later centuries and found application in subsequent table constructions. Tables intended for occasional use began to appear, reflecting growing contact with Eastern cultures and influencing designs incorporating lacquer. Britannia notes that tables presented to monarchs, such as one given to Charles II by the City of London, were sometimes entirely covered in silver or crafted from ebony with silver mountings, signifying wealth and status. These elaborate examples demonstrate a shift toward conspicuous consumption within elite circles. The development of specialized table forms continued throughout the 16th century, driven by evolving social customs such as tea drinking. The increasing availability of walnut and cherry wood also facilitated a greater refinement of joinery techniques, allowing for more intricate detailing and stronger constructions. Britannia notes that tables presented to monarchs, such as one given to Charles II by the City of London, were sometimes entirely covered in silver or crafted from ebony with silver mountings, signifying wealth and status. These elaborate examples demonstrate a shift toward conspicuous consumption within elite circles. Social customs, such as tea drinking, fueled the development of these specialized forms. The shift toward specialized furniture continued into the 16th century, and with it came a growing emphasis on tables as displays of status. While earlier tables served primarily practical purposes, this era saw them increasingly transformed into objects of conspicuous consumption. Britannia notes that tables presented to monarchs, such as one given to Charles II by the City of London, were sometimes entirely covered in silver or crafted from ebony with silver mountings. This practice underscored a desire among elite circles to demonstrate wealth and power through material possessions. The Baroque period witnessed an escalation in this trend. Tables became more elaborate, incorporating increasingly luxurious materials and intricate designs. Gilded wood, imported marble, and complex carvings were common features, moving beyond the functional simplicity of earlier forms. These tables weren't merely surfaces for dining or work. They were statements, visual declarations of social standing. The construction techniques themselves reflected this shift, as joinery became more refined to accommodate these ornate details. Social customs, such as tea drinking, fueled the development of these specialized forms. The lavishness extended beyond mere materials. Construction techniques themselves became opportunities for display. Britannia notes that tables presented to monarchs, such as one given to Charles II by the City of London, were sometimes entirely covered in silver or crafted from ebony with silver mountings. These details required skilled artisans and significant labor, further amplifying the message of wealth and power conveyed by the table itself. The increasing specialization of furniture production meant that these elaborate tables were often commissioned from renowned workshops, becoming status symbols not only for their owners, but also for those who created them. Social customs, such as tea drinking, fueled the development of these specialized forms, leading to smaller, more ornate tables designed specifically for serving refreshments and accommodating delicate porcelain. Britannia observes that increasing contact with the East in the 18th century stimulated a taste for lacquered tables for occasional use, demonstrating an expanding range of aesthetic influences shaping furniture design. The increasing specialization of furniture production also led to a greater variety of table forms suited for specific purposes beyond dining. Britannia notes that tables designed for card playing, often oval or kidney-shaped, to allow players to comfortably gather around, became increasingly popular in drawing rooms. These specialized tables frequently featured felt coverings and compartments for storing cards and gaming accessories, further demonstrating the evolving relationship between furniture and leisure activities. The use of exotic materials continued to be a hallmark of high-status tables. Britannia mentions that tortoise-shell veneers were sometimes applied to surfaces, creating a lustrous finish highly prized by wealthy patrons. This practice required considerable skill in both material preparation and application, adding to the overall cost and exclusivity of these pieces. Furthermore, the development of marquetry techniques allowed for intricate pictorial scenes to be incorporated into tabletops, transforming them into miniature works of art. The Renaissance and subsequent centuries saw the table evolve from a utilitarian object back into a highly refined piece of permanent furniture, reflecting a return to specialized rooms and fixed dining areas. Craftsmanship flourished, yielding diverse forms like the console table, which was designed to stand against a wall, and the smaller coffee table, which emerged much later to accommodate new social rituals. Furniture makers formalized intricate styles, treating the table as a canvas for detailed carving and inlay work. the Industrial Revolution fundamentally altered the table's journey, shifting production from individual artisan workshops to factory assembly lines. New machinery allowed for the rapid, standardized cutting and joining of wood, significantly lowering the cost and increasing the availability of tables to the general public. This transition accelerated the diversification of table types, creating specialized designs for libraries, offices, and even laboratories. Britannica notes that growing sophistication of taste led to an increasing degree of specialization in occasional table design. Social customs such as tea drinking fueled the development of these forms. The increasing availability of mass-produced tables spurred experimentation with new materials beyond traditional hardwoods. Britannica notes that by the late 19th and early 20th centuries, exploitation of man-made materials led to tables constructed from plastic, metal, fiberglass, and even corrugated cardboard. Engineerfix.com observes this diversification as a direct consequence of industrialization's ability to lower production costs and broaden accessibility. While these materials did not immediately supplant wood entirely, they offered alternatives for specific applications and design aesthetics. The development of pocket-sized reckoners during the Industrial Revolution exemplifies how tables evolved beyond furniture into portable calculation tools. Britannica mentions that social customs, such as tea drinking, fueled specialized forms. Similarly, the demands of burgeoning industries created a need for readily accessible numerical data. Engineerfix.com details how these ready reckoners facilitated commercial transactions and supported engineering endeavors like railroad construction, where engineers consulted tables to calculate curve radii. These portable tables often took the form of cards or small booklets containing essential information, exchange rates, interest calculations, or astronomical coordinates, demonstrating a shift towards functional specialization beyond the domestic sphere. The Whipple Museum notes that these reckoners were frequently updated as markets fluctuated and scientific understanding advanced. The diversification of materials also impacted table construction techniques. Britannica notes that by the late 18th and 19th centuries, tables increasingly incorporated metal components for strength and ornamentation. Engineerfix.com observes that cast iron legs became common, allowing for more elaborate designs than previously possible with traditional wood joinery. These iron supports were often decorated with applied details like foliage or classical motifs, reflecting prevailing aesthetic trends. Furthermore, the use of veneer, a thin layer of decorative wood glued over a less expensive core, became widespread, enabling manufacturers to simulate the appearance of rare and costly hardwoods while reducing material costs. This technique is mentioned in Britannica as contributing to tables of conspicuous opulence. The shift towards specialized rooms and fixed dining areas during the Renaissance marked a turning point for tables. While earlier periods often saw multifunctional spaces requiring adaptable furniture, wealthier households began to designate specific rooms for dining, allowing for more permanent fixtures. Britannica notes that this era witnessed tables reflecting the general design tendencies of their period and social context. This trend intensified throughout the Victorian era, where functionality increasingly intertwined with elaborate ornamentation. The Victorian fascination with display and status extended to every aspect of domestic life, and the dining table became a central stage for demonstrating wealth and refinement. Tables were no longer simply surfaces for eating. They were statements of taste and social standing. Britannica observes that tables of this period often featured conspicuous opulence. This was achieved through several means. The use of veneer allowed manufacturers to simulate expensive hardwoods, while cast iron legs, a development building on earlier innovations, enabled more intricate designs than traditional wood joinery could support. These iron supports were frequently adorned with applied details like foliage or classical motifs, further enhancing the decorative effect. Dining tables in particular became focal points for elaborate settings. They served as backdrops for formal dinners and social gatherings, reflecting a culture that valued ritual and presentation. The desire to impress guests led to increasingly complex designs and lavish materials, solidifying the table's role not just as furniture, but as an integral part of Victorian domestic life. The desire to impress guests also spurred innovation in table construction itself. Britannica notes that by the mid-18th century, growing sophistication of taste and higher standards of living led to an increasing degree of specialization in occasional table design. While large dining tables exhibited less stylistic change, smaller, specialized tables proliferated. This reflected evolving social customs. For example, the rise of tea drinking prompted the creation of dedicated tea tables, often more ornate than those used for other purposes. Britannica observes that these tables were sometimes inlaid with elaborate patterns of marquetry or rare marbles. Furthermore, some were constructed entirely from ebony and adorned with silver mountings, a testament to the era's penchant for lavish display. The increasing contact with Eastern cultures also influenced design, leading to a demand for lacquered tables intended for occasional use. This diversification extended beyond materials. Table shapes became more varied as well, moving beyond simple rectangular forms to include oval and even kidney-shaped designs. These variations allowed for greater flexibility in room layouts and further emphasized the decorative role of the table within the domestic space. Following centuries of ornate craftsmanship and elaborate decoration, a shift began to emerge in table design during the early 20th century. This change was driven by broader movements in art and architecture that prioritized functionality and simplicity. Britannica notes that tables showed few stylistic changes regarding large dining tables, but growing sophistication led to an increasing degree of specialization in occasional table design. The emphasis moved away from lavish display toward a more streamlined aesthetic. The Industrial Revolution's legacy continued to shape this evolution, with mass production techniques allowing for greater experimentation with new materials and forms. EngineerFix.com observes that the table remains a piece of elevated furniture comprising a flat, horizontal surface supported by one or more vertical legs, but increasingly these components were re-evaluated through a lens of efficiency and modernism. Traditional hardwoods gave way to steel and glass, which enabled thinner profiles and lighter constructions. The focus shifted from ornamentation to structural integrity and ease of use. This simplification reflected a broader cultural desire for clarity and order in the wake of earlier decorative excesses. The shift towards simpler forms was not uniform across all table types. Britannica notes that while large dining tables exhibited few stylistic changes, a growing sophistication of taste led to increasing specialization in occasional table design. This meant that while substantial fixed dining surfaces retained some traditional elements, smaller tables, end tables, coffee tables, console tables became fertile ground for modernist experimentation. EngineerFix.com's observation regarding the table's basic structure remained relevant. However, the interpretation of elevated furniture increasingly emphasized visual lightness and a rejection of cumbersome mass. The influence of Bauhaus design principles, emphasizing functionality and geometric forms, became particularly evident in table construction. Steel tubing, previously relegated to industrial applications, found its way into table legs and frames, allowing for thinner profiles and cantilevered designs that appeared to defy gravity. Glass tabletops, often paired with these minimalist supports, further contributed to a sense of airy elegance. These materials facilitated the creation of tables that were both structurally sound and visually unobtrusive, a stark contrast to the heavily ornamented pieces of earlier eras. The use of molded plywood also gained traction, enabling complex curves and organic shapes while maintaining structural integrity and affordability through mass production techniques. The increasing availability of molded plastics further expanded design possibilities, allowing for complex shapes and vibrant colors previously unattainable with traditional materials. Britannica notes that the exploitation of man-made materials produced tables of such materials as plastic, metal, fiberglass, and even corrugated cardboard. While the longevity and durability of these new forms remained to be seen, their introduction signaled a broader shift away from purely functional considerations toward an exploration of aesthetic potential and material experimentation. The increasing use of molded plywood and plastics had opened up new possibilities for furniture design, but a significant shift was also underway regarding how people interacted with their living spaces. The mid-20th century saw evolving lifestyles that demanded greater flexibility from home furnishings. Traditional, fixed tables were becoming less suitable for smaller apartments and increasingly dynamic households. This need spurred innovation in table design, moving beyond purely aesthetic considerations to embrace adaptability. One notable development was the rise of modular furniture systems. While Britannica notes a broader trend toward man-made materials in table construction, this era also saw a growing emphasis on functionality and configurability. The idea wasn't simply about using new materials, it was about rethinking the very nature of what a table could be. Engineers and designers began exploring designs that allowed tables to be easily reconfigured or expanded to suit changing needs, a far cry from the fixed, heavy oak tables of earlier centuries. These early modular systems often involved detachable leaves, adjustable heights, or components that could be combined in various ways. The concept reflected a broader societal shift toward greater mobility and adaptability, mirroring changes observed within economics itself, where economists were increasingly consulted on policy decisions impacting rapidly changing markets. This shift toward adaptability also manifested in evolving understandings of economic principles themselves. As Britannica notes, economists were increasingly consulted on policy decisions impacting rapidly changing markets. This growing influence extended to furniture design, as manufacturers sought to create pieces that aligned with broader societal trends and consumer demands. While traditional craftsmanship remained valued, there was a parallel drive towards mass production techniques capable of delivering adaptable furnishings at more accessible price points. The integration of new materials like plywood and molded plastics further facilitated the creation of lightweight, easily assembled components. These materials allowed for greater design flexibility and reduced manufacturing costs, contributing to the wider availability of modular systems. Early examples often involved simple interlocking mechanisms or sliding joints that enabled users to reconfigure tables according to their needs. A dining table could be expanded for entertaining guests or collapsed into a smaller footprint for everyday use. The concept was not entirely novel. Britannica references draw tops on 16th century tables, but the mid-20th century saw this principle applied more systematically across entire furniture systems, driven by both technological advancements and shifting consumer expectations. This adaptability extended beyond purely functional considerations. Aesthetics also played a crucial role. Britannica notes that from the mid-16th century onward, tables began to reflect broader design trends and social contexts. While earlier examples prioritized utility, manufacturers increasingly incorporated decorative elements, curved legs, inlaid surfaces to align with prevailing tastes. This integration of form and function further fueled demand for adaptable designs, as consumers sought furniture that could seamlessly transition between different settings and purposes. The rise of specialized tables catered to specific needs, such as tea drinking, demonstrating a growing desire for tailored solutions within the home. The mid-20th century brought a shift in furniture design, moving beyond traditional wood and metal toward lighter, more adaptable solutions. This period saw the emergence of aluminum tables as a modern response to evolving needs across various industries. While earlier tables prioritized utility or decoration, aluminum offered a unique combination of properties that redefined their potential. Aluminum's lightness proved immediately advantageous. Unlike heavier wooden or cast iron counterparts, aluminum tables could be easily moved and reconfigured within spaces, a crucial factor in the rise of flexible workspaces and adaptable home environments. Simultaneously, aluminum possessed remarkable durability. Resistant to rust and corrosion, these tables promised longevity compared to many traditional materials. This combination of lightness and strength made them suitable for applications beyond domestic settings. The versatility of aluminum further fueled its adoption. It lent itself readily to diverse designs, from simple utilitarian forms to more complex geometries. Engineers and designers quickly recognized the potential for creating specialized tables tailored to specific purposes, laboratory workbenches or portable displays. The ability to extrude aluminum into various shapes allowed for innovative structural solutions, enabling thinner profiles and cantilevered designs previously unattainable with heavier materials. This capacity extended beyond aesthetics. It facilitated the creation of tables optimized for stability or adjustability. The inherent properties of aluminum, its strength-to-weight ratio and corrosion resistance, made it particularly well-suited to environments demanding durability and ease of maintenance, such as laboratories and industrial settings. Wooden laboratory benches had long been standard, but their susceptibility to chemical damage prompted a search for alternatives. Aluminum's non-reactive nature provided a solution, allowing surfaces that could withstand spills and cleaning agents without degradation. Similarly, in commercial kitchens where hygiene was paramount, aluminum tables offered an easily sanitized work surface resistant to the corrosive effects of food acids and oils. The adaptability of aluminum also spurred experimentation with new forms and functions beyond traditional dining or workspace applications. Specialized tables emerged for medical examination, offering adjustable heights and surfaces suitable for diagnostic equipment. Portable display stands utilized lightweight aluminum frames to support graphic panels at trade shows. Outdoor furniture benefited from the material's weather resistance, creating durable picnic tables and patio sets. The shift toward aluminum also coincided with advancements in extrusion and forming techniques that broadened its application within furniture design. Early aluminum tables often mimicked traditional wooden forms, but the material's malleability encouraged experimentation with unconventional shapes and structural arrangements. The lightness of aluminum enabled designs previously constrained by the weight of wood or steel. For example, cantilevered tabletops could be supported by minimal framing, creating a sense of floating elegance while maintaining stability. This aesthetic appeal was coupled with practical benefits in environments where space was at a premium. The relative ease with which aluminum could be recycled also presented an environmental advantage compared to the extraction and processing required for many traditional materials. Tables themselves have a long history. Ancient Mesopotamians used tablets with columns and rows to account for goods, while early modern Europe saw mathematical tables become essential resources for calculations. These tables evolved from fixed platforms in ancient Egypt and Mesopotamia to movable dining tables in Greece and Rome, which were later adapted into trestle tables during the medieval era for space efficiency. The design of these tables has continually reflected changes in human architecture, social customs, and engineering capability. The table's evolution has seen it transform from a basic necessity to an object of specialized design. Ancient civilizations utilized raised platforms and stone slabs for practical purposes, but the true transformation occurred in Greece and Rome. Greek culture introduced separate, four-legged tables for dining, while Roman artisans refined these designs with richer materials like bronze, iron, and carved woods. The Romans solidified the table's form as a distinct piece of furniture, often incorporating animal shapes into leg designs to indicate social status. Following this classical period, the medieval era prioritized portability and space efficiency, leading to the development of trestle tables, long planks supported by detachable crosspieces. This design allowed for rapid assembly and disassembly, maximizing floor space in multi-purpose rooms. The trestle concept would later influence folding mechanisms used in more compact furniture designs. As life became more formal during this period, tables took on greater social significance. Large halls featured a central table for the master and guests, while others were placed around it to feed retainers. By the 15th century, drawer tops allowed tables to be extended, doubling their length, a principle still applied in some modern designs. The shift toward mass production spurred experimentation with new materials beyond traditional wood. Aluminum, initially expensive and difficult to work with, gradually became more accessible through advancements in metallurgy and manufacturing processes. Its lightweight nature and resistance to corrosion offered advantages over iron or steel, particularly for tables intended for use in environments requiring mobility or durability. By the mid-20th century, aluminum began appearing in laboratory settings where its non-reactive properties were valued for conducting experiments involving corrosive chemicals. These early lab tables often featured simple designs, rectangular tops supported by tubular aluminum legs, prioritizing functionality over aesthetics. The adoption of aluminum extended beyond laboratories into domestic spaces and event venues. Its inherent visual lightness contributed to a sense of modernity and spaciousness, aligning with the design philosophies prevalent in mid-century modern homes. Event planners recognized its portability and stackability for temporary setups, such as banquets or trade shows. Framing tech emerged during this period, capitalizing on the growing demand for aluminum tables by developing modular systems that allowed for customizable sizes and configurations. Their designs often incorporated folding mechanisms inspired by earlier trestle table principles, enabling easy storage and transport. The company's focus remained on utility. Their initial offerings prioritized structural integrity and ease of assembly over elaborate ornamentation. The shift toward specialized table designs extended to laboratory environments as well. While early aluminum lab tables prioritized functionality, later models began incorporating adjustable height mechanisms, a response to evolving ergonomic standards and a desire for greater user comfort. These adjustments often involved telescoping legs or threaded supports, allowing researchers to customize the work surface elevation. The integration of cable management systems also became increasingly common, reflecting a growing awareness of workplace organization and safety in laboratory settings. Simultaneously, manufacturers began experimenting with different surface finishes to enhance durability and chemical resistance, moving beyond simple brushed aluminum to incorporate powder coating or specialized protective layers. This evolution mirrored broader trends in industrial design, a gradual refinement of form and function driven by technological advancements and user feedback. The table's history is marked by a gradual shift from fixed architectural elements to movable furniture, reflecting changes in human architecture and social customs. Early raised surfaces weren't tables as we understand them today, but low platforms or stone slabs used in ancient Egypt and Mesopotamia dating back to the 3rd millennium BCE. These structures served primarily as work surfaces for food preparation or as low altars, built directly into homes or temples. Their weight and permanent placement underscore their role as static utilities within a space. Following this initial functionality, Greek culture introduced separate, four-legged tables specifically for dining. Roman artisans further developed these designs, producing the mensa, a movable table that became standard in wealthier homes. Construction incorporated bronze, iron, carved woods like maple and citrus, and sophisticated leg designs turned, tapered, or even shaped like animals, sometimes crafted from marble or precious metals. This era marked the beginning of functional specialization. Tables were no longer solely utilitarian, but also indicators of social status and opportunities for artistic expression. The medieval period saw a focus on portability driven by the multi-purpose function of castles and great halls. The trestle table, utilizing a detachable plank supported by cross pieces, emerged as a solution to maximize space when rooms transitioned between banqueting areas and sleeping quarters. This design's ability to disassemble influenced later innovations like drop-leaf and gate-leg tables. Later, the Renaissance saw a return to permanent furniture, with craftsmanship flourishing and tables becoming canvases for detailed carving. The Industrial Revolution then shifted production from artisan workshops to factories, lowering costs and increasing availability, accelerating diversification in table types, including those designed for laboratories. The Industrial Revolution's impact extended beyond merely lowering production costs. It also spurred experimentation with new materials. While wood remained dominant, cast iron tables gained popularity for their durability and resistance to pests, a significant advantage in an era where insect infestations were common. Britannia metal, a pewter alloy, offered a brighter aesthetic and was employed for smaller tables and decorative elements. The late 19th century witnessed the introduction of steel, initially used primarily for table frames and supports due to its strength relative to weight. This allowed for larger tabletop spans without excessive bulk, influencing designs for billiard tables and laboratory work surfaces. Early 20th century experimentation included phenolic resins, precursors to modern plastics, though their application in furniture remained limited by cost and manufacturing challenges. The rise of aluminum presented a further alternative. Initially expensive, its lightweight nature and resistance to corrosion made it attractive for specialized applications such as outdoor furniture and institutional settings where ease of movement was prioritized. The history of tables extends far beyond the functional objects we recognize today. Initially, these surfaces served as crucial resources for calculation and record-keeping. As early as the 3rd millennium BCE in Mesopotamia, tablets employing columns and rows were used to track goods and livestock. Later, astronomer Ptolemy's handy tables provided clear presentations of mathematical values, facilitating knowledge sharing. Beyond numerical applications, tables evolved to fulfill diverse cultural roles. In ancient Egypt and Mesopotamia, low, raised platforms served as protective surfaces for food preparation and offerings. These early structures prioritized stability over portability, constructed from heavy materials like stone or wood. The Greeks introduced the concept of separate, movable dining tables, while Roman artisans refined these designs with richer materials and intricate leg carvings, signifying social status. Following the classical period, medieval Europe saw a shift towards practicality, driven by the need for adaptable furniture in multi-purpose spaces. Trestle tables, easily assembled and disassembled, became commonplace, maximizing floor space within castles and great halls. While this section acknowledges these developments, it's important to note that detailed accounts of table traditions outside of Western cultures remain limited within available sources. Further research is needed to fully understand the unique approaches to design and function found in Asian and African societies. For example, descriptions of dining practices in many parts of Asia often involve seating on cushions or mats directly on the floor, utilizing low tables or trays for food presentation. These arrangements prioritize communal eating and a closer connection with the environment, differing significantly from the individual place settings associated with Western table traditions. Similarly, in various African cultures, meals are frequently served on large platters, shared by multiple individuals seated around a central gathering space. The absence of individual tables reflects social customs that emphasize community and equality, rather than personal ownership or defined seating arrangements. Accounts suggest that raised platforms were also used for ceremonial purposes beyond food preparation. In some regions, they served as stages for storytelling or musical performances, blurring the lines between functional furniture and ritualistic spaces. Further investigation into regional variations within these broader cultural contexts is crucial to developing a more comprehensive understanding of global table history. These varied approaches to dining and furniture design highlight a divergence from Western traditions that emphasize individual place settings and dedicated, movable tables. Existing accounts suggest that the functionality of raised surfaces extended beyond mere food presentation in several cultures. Early Egyptian tables were constructed from wood, while Assyrian examples utilized metal. Roman tables often featured elaborate carvings depicting animals or grotesque figures, demonstrating a decorative emphasis not consistently observed in Western table development during comparable periods. Medieval European accounts mention Charlemagne possessing silver and gold tables, suggesting ceremonial uses beyond everyday dining. The evolution of the draw table in 16th century Europe, with its extendable leaves, also demonstrates an attempt to adapt furniture for varied social gatherings, a principle echoed in some Asian low-table designs intended for communal meals. The table, a raised horizontal surface supported by legs, represents a long evolution of human ingenuity. Initially, the need to elevate objects above ground level drove early innovations. Evidence indicates that in ancient Egypt and Mesopotamia, during the 3rd millennium BCE, low platforms and stone slabs served as rudimentary work surfaces. These weren't movable furniture pieces. Instead, they were integrated into building plans, offering protection from pests and moisture for food or materials. The concept of a distinct table began to take shape with the ancient Greeks, who introduced separate, four-legged tables specifically for dining. Roman culture further refined this design, creating mensa, movable dining tables common in wealthier homes. These were constructed from richer materials like bronze, iron, and carved woods, showcasing an emphasis on aesthetics alongside functionality. Romans also developed smaller specialized tables, monopodia, supported by a single leg for serving drinks or displaying ornaments. This marked the first significant move toward functional specialization. The Roman emphasis extended beyond dining. Smaller writing surfaces, a bacchi, became commonplace, facilitating calculations and record-keeping. These were often portable, reflecting a need for mobility among scribes and merchants. Following the decline of the Roman Empire, table design shifted due to regional variations in building practices and available materials. During the medieval period, tables served as essential tools for copying manuscripts and conducting scholarly work. While earlier examples favored stone or roughly hewn wood, later medieval tables increasingly utilized lighter timbers like oak and ash, allowing for easier movement. Construction techniques prioritized durability over elaborate ornamentation. Table legs were frequently braced to provide greater stability under heavy texts and writing implements. The need to transition large spaces from banqueting areas to courts led to the invention of trestle tables, a long plank laid across detachable supports. This allowed rapid assembly and disassembly, maximizing usable floor space. The inherent flexibility of this concept would later influence designs like drop leaf and gate leg tables. As trade routes re-emerged during the later medieval period, new materials began to disseminate across Europe. While oak remained dominant in northern regions, Mediterranean influences introduced marquetry and veneering techniques involving thin layers of decorative wood applied to a core structure. The Renaissance saw a return to permanent furniture, with craftsmanship flourishing and diverse forms emerging like console tables and coffee tables. The Industrial Revolution shifted production from workshops to factories, lowering costs and increasing availability. Contemporary manufacturing continues this trend, echoing the principles of the medieval trestle table in modern flat-pack furniture where efficiency remains paramount. The table's history is often overlooked, yet it represents a significant innovation within human civilization. While seemingly simple, a flat surface supported by vertical elements, its evolution reflects changing social structures and technological capabilities. The earliest raised surfaces weren't furniture at all, but fixed platforms used in ancient Egypt and Mesopotamia during the 3rd millennium BCE. These low stone slabs or stacked clay bricks served primarily as work areas for food preparation, protecting materials from pests and moisture. Their permanent placement underscores their role as static utilities within homes and temples. The transformation into a distinct piece of furniture occurred in ancient Greece and Rome. Greek culture introduced separate, four-legged tables specifically for dining, which were moved in and out of rooms as needed. Roman artisans further developed this design with the mensa, a movable table that became common in wealthier households. Construction incorporated bronze, iron, and carved woods like maple and citrus, with sophisticated leg designs signifying status. This marked a shift beyond mere utility toward artistic expression. Small tables for serving drinks or playing games emerged, each tailored to a specific activity. The Romans solidified the table's form as a separate object, influencing modern furniture design. Following this classical period, medieval adaptations prioritized portability and space efficiency within large halls that served multiple purposes. This necessity led to the invention of the trestle table, a long plank supported by detachable crosspieces. Rapid assembly and disassembly maximized usable floor space, a principle echoed in later designs like drop-leaf tables. The flared feet on trestle supports ensured stability under heavy loads during communal feasts. The Roman emphasis on elaborate design extended to specialized tables intended for specific activities and reflecting social distinctions. Britannia notes that Romans crafted tables with legs carved into animal shapes, sphinxes, or grotesque figures, utilizing cedar and other exotic woods adorned with decorative grain alongside bronze or metal legs. These features signaled wealth and refined taste. Following the medieval period, increasing formality in life led to greater social significance for tables. Charlemagne possessed silver and gold tables, demonstrating a desire for opulent displays of status. Large halls necessitated arrangements where masters and guests dined at elevated rectangular tables, while retainers occupied smaller tables positioned perpendicularly. The 15th century saw the emergence of round tables intended for occasional use, alongside common trestle constructions that could be disassembled to maximize space. Tables with attached legs and stretchers appeared in the 16th century, though their fixed size made them less adaptable than later designs. Britannia also references drawer tops from this era, which allowed table length to be doubled through runners and concealed leaves, a principle informing subsequent extending tables. Following the medieval period, increasing formality in life led to greater social significance for tables. Charlemagne possessed silver and gold tables, demonstrating a desire for opulent displays of status. Large halls necessitated arrangements where masters and guests dined at elevated rectangular tables, while retainers occupied smaller tables positioned perpendicularly. The 15th century saw the emergence of round tables intended for occasional use, alongside common trestle constructions that could be disassembled to maximize space. Tables with attached legs and stretchers appeared in the 16th century, though their fixed size made them less adaptable than later designs. The transition into the modern era brought a renewed focus on craftsmanship and design, moving away from purely utilitarian forms. Furniture makers began treating tables as opportunities for artistic expression, incorporating detailed carving and inlay work. However, this period also marked the beginning of a profound shift in how tables were produced. The Industrial Revolution fundamentally altered manufacturing processes, replacing individual artisan workshops with factory assembly lines. New machinery enabled the rapid and standardized cutting and joining of wood, dramatically reducing costs and increasing availability. This mechanization spurred diversification. Specialized designs emerged for libraries, offices, and laboratories, spaces increasingly distinct from one another. While earlier tables were largely handcrafted, this new era prioritized efficiency and mass production. The principles behind medieval trestle tables found a parallel in the rise of flat-pack furniture, where ease of assembly became a key consideration. Contemporary manufacturing continues to evolve, utilizing techniques like veneer application and engineered wood products to make high-quality surfaces more accessible. The shift to mechanized production also impacted table size and design. While earlier tables were often dictated by the dimensions of available timber or the needs of a specific household, factories could produce standardized components regardless of natural limitations. This facilitated the creation of larger dining tables intended for more formal gatherings, alongside smaller side tables designed to complement parlor furniture. The development of mortise and tenon joints and dovetail joinery, techniques refined over centuries, were now implemented on an unprecedented scale, enabling stronger and more durable constructions than previously possible with hand-cut components. While the aesthetic focus remained on wood for many years, experimentation with alternative materials began to emerge. Cast iron tables, initially used in industrial settings, found their way into domestic spaces, offering a robust and relatively inexpensive option. The introduction of plate glass as tabletop surfaces also represented an innovation. While expensive, these provided a smooth, easily cleaned surface, suitable for display or writing. These developments were not universally adopted, however, and handcrafted wooden tables continued to be valued for their unique character and perceived quality. The table's evolution extends far beyond its function as a simple surface for dining or work. It represents a record of cultural exchange and technological adaptation across millennia. While seemingly straightforward, a flat horizontal plane supported by vertical legs, the design reflects fundamental shifts in architecture, social customs, and engineering capability. Early raised surfaces emerged not as furniture but as integrated architectural elements in Mesopotamia and ancient Egypt during the 3rd millennium BCE. These were low platforms or stone slabs used to protect goods from pests and moisture, serving a purely utilitarian purpose. The classical societies of Greece and Rome marked a significant departure. The Greeks introduced separate, four-legged tables specifically for dining, which were movable rather than fixed into the floor plan. Roman artisans further refined this concept with the mensa, a movable table constructed from richer materials like bronze, iron, maple, and citrus wood. These tables incorporated increasingly elaborate leg designs, turned, tapered, or even sculpted in animal forms, signifying an emerging emphasis on aesthetic refinement alongside function. This era witnessed the development of specialized tables for writing, games, and serving drinks, demonstrating a move toward functional specialization previously unseen. Roman craftsmanship solidified the table's form as a distinct piece of furniture, elevating it from a simple utility to an object reflecting social status. The Roman emphasis on elaborate design carried into subsequent periods, though often tempered by prevailing aesthetic trends and material availability. During the medieval era, tables reflected a shift toward practicality, dictated by changing social structures and architectural styles. Large communal dining halls in castles necessitated adaptable furniture, leading to the development of trestle tables, long planks supported by detachable crosspieces. These designs prioritized ease of disassembly for efficient space management within multi-purpose rooms. By the Renaissance, a renewed interest in classical forms spurred a return to more permanent table constructions and increasingly refined craftsmanship. Tables became focal points of interior design, often incorporating intricate carvings and inlaid decorative elements reflecting contemporary artistic styles. The 16th century saw the development of drawer tables, a notable innovation allowing for expansion of dining surfaces through concealed leaves, demonstrating an ongoing refinement in functionality alongside aesthetics. Contact with Eastern cultures during the 18th century introduced lacquered tables intended for occasional use, further diversifying table design and signaling a trend towards specialized forms catering to increasingly specific social customs such as tea ceremonies. The increasing availability of exotic materials and specialized forms reflected evolving social rituals. For example, tables designed specifically to accommodate tea services became increasingly common. Britannia notes that by the 18th century, growing sophistication of taste and higher standards of living led to an increasing degree of specialization in occasional table design. This trend manifested in a proliferation of smaller, purpose-built tables catering to activities beyond formal dining, such as writing or displaying decorative objects. The use of man-made materials began to appear later in the 20th century, though this development falls outside the scope of current discussion. The evolution of tables has long been intertwined with shifts in social customs and technological capabilities. Earlier periods saw tables primarily as functional necessities, while recent centuries have witnessed a growing specialization in design, reflecting evolving lifestyles and aesthetic preferences. Britannia notes that growing sophistication of taste and higher standards of living led to an increasing degree of specialization in occasional table design. This trend manifested in a proliferation of smaller purpose-built tables catering to activities beyond formal dining, such as writing or displaying decorative objects. Looking ahead, the concept of the table is poised for further transformation driven by concerns about sustainability and the integration of technology into everyday life. The Whipple Museum highlights that even seemingly simple structures like rulers and scales are representations of tabular information, suggesting a continued reliance on organized data presentation. This points towards potential innovations where tables themselves might become dynamic displays or interactive interfaces. The need to reduce environmental impact is likely to spur the adoption of new materials in table construction. While this development falls outside current discussion regarding earlier eras, it suggests that future designs will prioritize eco-friendly alternatives. Simultaneously, the rise of smart furniture indicates a move towards tables with embedded technology, surfaces capable of responding to user input or adjusting their functionality based on environmental conditions. These innovations promise to reshape how we interact with this fundamental piece of furniture, blurring the lines between utility and technological integration. The potential for incorporating recycled plastics, bamboo composites, or even mycelium-based materials into table construction offers avenues for reducing reliance on traditional timber sources. Furthermore, advancements in flexible electronics could allow for integrated displays that adapt to changing needs, transforming a simple surface into an interactive workspace or entertainment hub. Tables have served as more than just elevated surfaces; they are representations of organized data. In Mesopotamia, tablets using columns and rows were used to account for goods and livestock. Mathematical tables became important resources in early modern Europe, simplifying calculations. John Napier's discovery of logarithms led to the creation of logarithm tables that reduced complex operations. These tables evolved into pocket-sized ready reckoners essential for commercial transactions during industrialization. The need for accuracy spurred innovation, leading to attempts at mechanically computing and printing tables. Specialized tables emerged for railroads, interest calculations, or scientific experiments reflecting specific purposes. Statistical tables became vital resources in research, spreading the application of statistical tests. The Industrial Revolution shifted production from artisan workshops to factories, lowering costs and increasing availability. Contemporary manufacturing continues this trend with techniques like veneer application, making high-quality surfaces widely accessible. The table's history extends far beyond its modern form as a familiar piece of furniture. Early raised surfaces emerged from a practical need to elevate objects above dirt and moisture. In 3rd millennium BCE Mesopotamia, tablets using columns and rows were used to account for goods and livestock. Similarly, early platforms in ancient Egypt served as low altars for offerings. These weren't movable tables as we understand them today, but rather fixed structures integral to the architecture of homes and temples. The transformation into a distinct piece of furniture began in ancient Greece, where separate four-legged tables were introduced specifically for dining. Romans further refined this design, creating the mensa, a movable table that became a standard fixture in wealthier homes. These Roman tables incorporated richer materials like bronze, iron, and carved woods, signifying social status alongside functionality. The concept of specialized tables for writing, games, or display began to emerge during this period. This focus on form and material elevated the table beyond mere utility, marking it as an engineered object reflecting cultural values. Later, medieval adaptations prioritized portability with trestle designs, long planks supported by detachable crosspieces that could be quickly assembled and disassembled for multifunctional spaces. The inherent flexibility of this design would influence later innovations like drop-leaf tables. The medieval trestle design's influence extended beyond mere functionality. Its modular nature fostered a degree of adaptability previously unseen. As domestic spaces evolved, so too did table construction. By the 15th century, tables with attached legs, joined by stretchers close to the floor, began appearing, offering increased stability and permanence compared to the easily disassembled trestle design. These larger tables were often fixed in size and cumbersome to move, but an innovation known as the draw top emerged during the 16th century. This mechanism involved a tabletop composed of 3 sections. 2 smaller leaves could be slid beneath the main surface, effectively doubling the table's length when needed. Such designs, frequently crafted from oak or elm, demonstrated a growing desire for both spaciousness and flexibility within domestic settings. Britannica notes that tables in this period began to reflect broader design trends, exemplified by Elizabethan draw tables supported on vase-shaped legs with Ionic capitals. The increasing contact between Europe and the East also spurred interest in lacquered tables intended for occasional use, further diversifying table forms based on specialized functions and evolving social customs. The burgeoning availability of diverse materials and increasingly specialized functions also spurred experimentation with tabletop surfaces beyond traditional wood. Britannica notes that by the 18th century, tables crafted from exotic hardwoods like walnut and cherry became status symbols, reflecting evolving social customs and a desire for refined aesthetics within domestic settings. The introduction of lacquer, influenced by Eastern design trends, provided an alternative finish, often employed on smaller, occasional tables intended for display or specific purposes such as tea service. This diversification extended to the table's supporting structure, while vase-shaped legs with Ionic capitals remained fashionable during the Elizabethan era. Other designs incorporated more slender forms and intricate carvings reflecting broader decorative movements. The table, a seemingly simple piece of furniture, has undergone a profound evolution reflecting shifts in human society and technological capability. Its origins lie not with dedicated dining pieces, but with rudimentary raised surfaces intended for practical purposes. As early as the 3rd millennium BCE, Mesopotamian cultures utilized tablets employing columns and rows to account for goods and livestock, a precursor to what we now recognize as tables. These weren't furniture so much as fixed platforms built into structures, serving to protect materials from pests and moisture. The transition towards distinct dining tables began in ancient Greece, where separate, four-legged tables were introduced for meals. Romans further refined this design, creating the mensa, a movable table that became a fixture in wealthier homes. Roman craftsmanship incorporated bronze, iron, and carved woods like maple and citrus, with leg designs ranging from tern to animal shapes, demonstrating an emerging focus on aesthetics alongside functionality. Following the classical period, medieval Europe saw a shift towards portability driven by the need for adaptable spaces within castles and great halls. This necessity led to the widespread adoption of trestle tables, long planks supported by detachable crosspieces that could be quickly assembled or disassembled to maximize floor space. These trestles often featured flared feet for stability under heavy loads, reflecting an emphasis on practicality over elaborate design. The Renaissance and subsequent centuries witnessed a shift back towards more permanent furniture arrangements, reflecting evolving social structures and dedicated dining spaces. Tables of this period increasingly mirrored broader design trends. An Elizabethan example was often supported on four vase-shaped legs terminating in Ionic capitals, a characteristic detail reflective of the era's decorative style. Elaborate examples emerged, sometimes crafted from exotic materials like ebony or incorporating silver mountings, demonstrating a growing emphasis on luxury and status symbols. Growing technical sophistication led to innovations like drawer tops, allowing for expandable table surfaces, a principle that would later influence modern extending table mechanisms. Contact with Eastern cultures introduced lacquered tables intended for occasional use, further diversifying available styles and materials. The increasing popularity of tea drinking spurred further specialization, leading to the development of smaller tables designed for specific purposes beyond formal dining. This trend towards specialized forms continued into the 18th century, with an expanding range of designs catering to varied functions within the home. Britannia notes that in this period, social customs such as tea drinking fueled the development of these specialized forms. The exploitation of man-made materials emerged later in the 20th century, with tables constructed from plastic, metal, fiberglass, and corrugated cardboard. The table's history isn't about a singular invention, but rather a long evolution of a concept born from necessity. Early raised surfaces appeared as fixed architectural elements in ancient Egypt and Mesopotamia during the 3rd millennium BCE. These were low platforms or stone slabs integrated into homes and temples, designed to protect goods from pests and moisture. They functioned primarily as work areas for food preparation, rather than movable furniture. Greek culture introduced separate, four-legged tables specifically intended for dining. Roman artisans then developed the mensa, a movable table that became common in wealthier homes. Construction shifted to incorporate bronze, iron, and carved woods like maple and citrus. This era marked the beginning of functional specialization. Small, round tables emerged for serving drinks or displaying ornaments, while dedicated surfaces were created for writing and games. The Romans solidified the table's form as a distinct object, recognizing it not just as practical, but also as an opportunity for artistry and a signifier of social standing. Following this period, medieval adaptations prioritized portability and space efficiency in large halls and castles. This led to the invention of the trestle table, a detachable plank laid across supporting crosspieces that could be quickly disassembled when not needed. The inherent flexibility of the trestle concept would later influence designs like drop-leaf tables. While trestle tables remained common, smaller, more permanent tables began appearing within individual homes and workshops. These often featured folding mechanisms to allow them to be stored away, a direct descendant of space-saving principles. Improved woodworking techniques facilitated increasingly complex joinery, allowing for lighter yet sturdier construction. As literacy rates increased during the late medieval and Renaissance periods, dedicated surfaces for writing became more prevalent. These tables were often smaller in scale than dining tables, and might incorporate features like sloping tops or built-in drawers to hold inkwells and quills. Evidence suggests these specialized writing tables were initially a luxury item, found primarily within monastic scriptoria and the homes of wealthy scholars. The emergence of printing presses spurred demand for dedicated workspaces, as printers required stable surfaces for setting type and proofing pages. In the early 17th century, John Napier's discovery of logarithms transformed tables into essential tools for scientific calculation. Accurate logarithm tables became vital possessions. Henry Briggs worked to recalculate and distribute these tables widely, leading to a tradition of checking calculations and creating pocket-sized ready reckoners used in commercial transactions. However, accuracy remained a challenge due to the potential for error during calculation or typesetting. This spurred early attempts to design machines capable of computing and printing tables mechanically. The need for precision also influenced table construction. Laboratories relied on standard values like the specific heat of a substance. The development of cast iron allowed for more durable surfaces than wood alone, often combined with wooden legs or frames. Standardized measurement systems led to greater precision in table construction, ensuring consistent work areas for scientific experiments. Tables became essential tools for calculation and experimentation. The table's history extends beyond its role as a mere surface for calculation and experimentation. It has long held significance within religious rituals and ceremonies across diverse cultures. Early examples, predating the standardized forms we recognize today, served purposes far removed from modern dining or workspaces. In Mesopotamia during the 3rd millennium BCE, raised platforms and stone slabs functioned as protective surfaces for goods and livestock, but also as low altars for offerings, a foundational use that would resonate through millennia of religious practice. Ancient Egyptians employed similar structures, depicted in tomb paintings as pedestals holding containers of offerings. These weren't tables in the sense of movable furniture, but rather fixed platforms integral to temple layouts and funerary rites. The Greeks introduced a key development: separate, four-legged tables specifically for dining, which were brought into and out of rooms as needed. This portability also extended to ceremonial use. Portable surfaces allowed rituals to be enacted in various locations. Roman culture further refined this concept with the mensa, a movable table used for dining that became a fixture in wealthier homes. These tables weren't solely functional, they represented status, often crafted from rich materials and adorned with intricate carvings, an indication of their importance within social and religious displays. The medieval period saw adaptations driven by practical considerations. The trestle table, easily assembled and disassembled, facilitated flexible use of space within castles and great halls. While primarily serving as banqueting surfaces, these tables could be quickly cleared to accommodate other activities, demonstrating a versatility that extended into ceremonial contexts where space is needed to adapt for various purposes. Today, the altar in many Christian churches represents a direct descendant of this tradition, a raised surface designated for sacred rituals, echoing the ancient platforms used for offerings and symbolic displays across cultures. The trestle table's adaptability extended beyond mere space saving. Its design facilitated a shift toward more formal dining arrangements. While communal feasting remained common, the ability to create separate tables allowed for smaller groups and designated seating, a subtle but significant change in social dynamics within medieval settings. As the Renaissance dawned, a renewed interest in classical aesthetics influenced table construction once again. The focus shifted from purely functional designs towards incorporating decorative elements reflecting status and refinement. Tables began appearing with more elaborate leg carvings, inlaid detailing, and richer surface finishes, mirroring the broader artistic trends of the period. Evidence suggests that during this time, tables were increasingly viewed as integral components of interior design schemes rather than merely utilitarian objects. The Roman mensa served as a clear inspiration for these developments, with artisans striving to emulate its elegance and craftsmanship. This emphasis on aesthetics continued into subsequent centuries, influencing table styles across Europe and beyond, marking a departure from the purely practical considerations that had previously dominated their evolution. Following the medieval period, tables began to reflect broader shifts in social customs and design sensibilities. While trestle tables remained common for large gatherings, a renewed emphasis on formality led to the development of more permanent dining arrangements. Tables with attached legs joined by stretchers close to the floor emerged during the 15th century, though their fixed size and weight made them less adaptable than earlier designs. A notable innovation was the drawer table, which allowed for an increase in surface area through retractable leaves supported on runners, a principle that would influence later extending table designs. The 16th century witnessed a growing sophistication in furniture design, mirroring broader stylistic trends. Elizabethan drawer tables exemplified this shift, featuring vase-shaped legs and Ionic capitals characteristic of the period's decorative atmosphere. Tables constructed from exotic materials, like cedar and ebony, sometimes adorned with silver or marquetry, became symbols of wealth and status, favored by monarchies seeking to emulate opulence. Contact with Eastern cultures spurred a taste for lacquered tables intended for occasional use, further diversifying table styles. This specialization continued into subsequent centuries, catering to increasingly specific functions within the home. Britannia notes that some tables were entirely covered in silver or were made of ebony with silver mountings, gifts presented to monarchs like Charles II. The increasing availability of exotic materials and refined craftsmanship fostered a trend toward tables as statements of wealth. The 18th century witnessed further specialization driven by evolving social rituals. Britannica observes that growing sophistication of taste and higher standards of living led to an increasing degree of specialization in occasional table design. The rise of tea drinking spurred the creation of smaller, more delicate tables specifically intended for serving refreshments, a divergence from the large communal dining tables of earlier periods. Contact with Eastern cultures also influenced table styles, fostering a demand for lacquered pieces suited for display and occasional use. Britannia notes that tables made from man-made materials like plastic and fiberglass emerged during the 20th century, reflecting ongoing material innovation. Tables were increasingly treated as opportunities for artistic expression. Britannica mentions examples of round tables at Winchester Castle and elaborately decorated tables favored by monarchies seeking to emulate Versailles. The design reflected broader artistic trends, transforming the table from a utilitarian object into an integral part of interior decoration. The table's emergence wasn't a singular invention, but rather a gradual evolution driven by practical need and shifting social customs. Initially raised surfaces served as rudimentary work areas, low platforms and stone slabs in ancient Egypt and Mesopotamia, dating back to the 3rd millennium BCE. These early structures were fixed elements within homes or temples, designed primarily to protect food and materials from pests and moisture. They functioned more as architectural features than movable furniture. Later, Greek culture introduced separate four-legged tables for dining, a departure from these earlier fixed platforms. The Romans further refined this design with the mensa, a movable table that became a standard fixture in wealthier homes. Roman craftsmanship incorporated bronze, iron, and carved woods like maple, moving beyond mere utility toward an object of artistic expression indicative of social status. This period saw the development of specialized tables for writing or displaying ornaments, marking a shift towards functional specialization. The medieval era brought new economic pressures that influenced table design. The need to quickly adapt large halls for different purposes led to the invention and widespread adoption of trestle tables, long planks supported by detachable crosspieces. This innovation prioritized portability and space efficiency, reflecting an economy where rooms served multiple functions. While these early forms addressed immediate needs, they also laid groundwork for later developments in furniture design that emphasized adaptability and compact living. The medieval emphasis on portability and adaptability continued to influence table design into later periods. While wealthier households increasingly favored permanent, more elaborate tables crafted from hardwoods like oak and walnut, often adorned with intricate carvings indicative of status. The trestle form persisted in less affluent settings and for specific functions. Evidence suggests that the construction of these trestle tables gradually incorporated refinements aimed at improving stability and ease of use. For example, some trestles featured mortise and tenon joints to secure the crosspieces, a technique demonstrating increasing carpentry skill. The continued production of smaller folding tables also reflected ongoing needs for space efficiency in domestic environments. As economies shifted toward greater specialization during the Renaissance, table forms began to diversify beyond purely utilitarian designs. While dining remained a primary function, tables increasingly served as platforms for displaying objects or supporting activities like writing and gaming. This functional diversification spurred experimentation with shapes. Round tables became more common alongside rectangular ones, and leg styles, moving away from strictly structural considerations toward aesthetic expression. The availability of printed materials in the 15th century further fueled demand for specialized surfaces suitable for reading and writing, leading to the development of smaller, often hinged or adjustable tables designed to accommodate these activities. The table's evolution extends beyond its purely functional role. It has become a significant element within cultural expression, appearing prominently in literature and art across various eras. While initially serving as simple platforms for work or dining, tables gradually acquired symbolic weight and narrative importance, reflecting evolving social customs and artistic trends. Early depictions of tables appear in ancient Egyptian tomb paintings, where low pedestals held offerings, a visual representation of the table's initial purpose, to elevate and protect essential items. Roman artisans further elevated this concept, crafting elaborate mensae, movable dining tables that served as status symbols within wealthier homes. These tables incorporated rich materials like bronze, iron, and carved woods, with legs fashioned into animal or grotesque shapes, a clear departure from the purely utilitarian designs of earlier periods. The Romans' attention to form and material transformed the table from a simple slab into an engineered piece of furniture, signifying social standing as much as practical use. The medieval period saw tables adapt to changing architectural needs. Great halls frequently transitioned between banqueting areas and living spaces, necessitating portable solutions like trestle tables, long planks supported by detachable crosspieces. This design prioritized ease of assembly and disassembly, a testament to the era's focus on space efficiency. Later in the 15th century, large round tables emerged, though they were often reserved for occasional use. The drawer table, with its extendable top composed of multiple leaves, exemplified ingenuity in adapting furniture to fluctuating needs, a precursor to modern extending designs. The burgeoning trade with Eastern cultures during the 18th century fostered a taste for lacquered tables intended for occasional use, reflecting an increasing specialization of furniture design. While large dining tables maintained relatively consistent styles, higher living standards spurred innovation in smaller, more specialized forms. Tables designed to accommodate specific social rituals, such as tea drinking, became increasingly common. Britannica notes that this trend persisted well into the 20th century. The exploitation of manufactured materials, plastic, metal, fiberglass, and even corrugated cardboard further expanded design possibilities. Though these innovations did not fundamentally alter the table's core structural principles. Roman tables, for example, often featured legs carved in the shapes of animals or sphinxes, demonstrating an early integration of artistic expression into functional objects. Similarly, Elizabethan drawer tables reflected the decorative atmosphere of their age, with vase-shaped legs terminating in Ionic capitals. The increasing specialization of furniture design also manifested in tables intended for card playing, often incorporating recessed areas to hold cards and prevent them from slipping onto the floor. Britannica notes that these specialized forms were frequently crafted with elaborate marquetry or other decorative techniques, reflecting a growing emphasis on both functionality and aesthetics. The availability of imported hardwoods like mahogany further expanded design possibilities, allowing for more intricate carving and detailing than previously possible with locally sourced timber. While oak remained a common material for substantial tables intended for everyday use, finer woods became increasingly associated with luxury items designed to enhance the appearance of well-appointed homes. The increasing integration of digital technology into everyday objects has also reshaped the design and function of tables. While previously valued for their aesthetic qualities or specialized uses like card playing, modern tables are now frequently incorporating features that directly interface with electronic devices. The very concept of a table is being reconsidered in light of our reliance on spreadsheets and digital data. As noted by the Whipple Museum, it's easy to underestimate the table as an innovation itself. These structures, once primarily surfaces for physical objects, are evolving into platforms for computation and connectivity. One notable trend involves the incorporation of charging ports directly into tabletops. This allows users to conveniently power their smartphones, tablets, or laptops without needing separate adapters or searching for available outlets. Beyond simple charging capabilities, some designs explore smart table surfaces, though details regarding these are scarce within the provided evidence. The focus remains on facilitating calculation and access to information, echoing the historical role of tables as resources for mathematical functions and astronomical coordinates. Just as early modern Europe saw logarithm tables become essential tools for simplifying calculations, contemporary tables aim to streamline our digital workflows. The need for portable calculating devices arose alongside industrialization, with engineers requiring compact tools like Alexander Beasley's cards for railroad curve radii. Similarly, the integration of technology into tables reflects a desire for convenience and accessibility in an increasingly mobile world. These new designs represent a continuation of that historical trend, a shift towards smaller, more specialized instruments intended to support specific tasks. These integrated functionalities represent a subtle but significant shift from earlier tables, which primarily served as repositories of static data. The Whipple Museum notes that these structures were fundamental resources for calculation, and this trend continues with contemporary design seeking to streamline digital workflows. While specific technical details about smart table surfaces remain limited in the available documentation, the general direction suggests a move towards interactive displays or embedded sensors, capable of responding to user input, a far cry from the meticulously hand-calculated logarithm tables championed by John Napier and later distributed widely by Henry Briggs. The need for portable calculating devices arose alongside industrialization, as evidenced by Alexander Beasley's cards designed for railroad curve radii. Similarly, these technologically integrated tables reflect a desire for convenience and accessibility in an increasingly mobile world. It is important to note that the extent of integration varies considerably across different designs. with some incorporating only basic charging ports, while others explore more advanced interactive capabilities. The Wayback Machine reveals examples of websites showcasing such features, though the longevity and widespread adoption of these designs remain unclear. The table, as a distinct piece of furniture, evolved from more rudimentary forms serving practical needs. Early raised surfaces appeared in Mesopotamia and ancient Egypt around the 3rd millennium BCE. These weren't tables as we understand them today, but low platforms or stone slabs built into structures to protect goods from pests and moisture. Functionally, they served as work areas for food preparation or as simple altars. The concept of a movable table began to take shape in ancient Greece, where separate four-legged tables were used for dining. Romans further refined this design, creating the mensa, a portable dining table that became common in wealthier homes. Roman craftsmanship incorporated richer materials and more elaborate leg designs, sometimes carved into animal shapes or constructed from marble. This marked an early shift toward functional specialization. Small round tables appeared for serving drinks or displaying ornaments. Following the classical period, medieval necessity spurred innovation. Large halls required adaptable furniture, leading to the development of trestle tables, long planks supported by detachable crosspieces. These could be quickly disassembled and stored when not in use, maximizing space within multi-purpose rooms. The trestle design prioritized portability and ease of assembly, a principle that would later influence folding table designs. The shift towards specialized rooms and fixed dining areas during the Renaissance spurred a diversification of table forms beyond the trestle design. Craftsmanship flourished, yielding diverse shapes like console tables designed to stand against walls, and smaller coffee tables that emerged alongside evolving social rituals centered around beverages. Furniture makers such as Thomas Chippendale formalized intricate styles, treating the table as a canvas for detailed carving and inlay work. The Industrial Revolution fundamentally altered furniture production, transitioning from artisan workshops to factory assembly lines. This enabled rapid, standardized cutting and joining of wood, lowering costs and increasing availability. New materials also entered common usage. Britannica notes that tables were constructed from cedar, bronze, elm, walnut, cherry, ebony, silver, plastic metal, fiberglass, and corrugated cardboard. The principles inherent in the medieval trestle table are echoed in modern flat-pack furniture designs, emphasizing efficiency and ease of assembly. The proliferation of specialized table forms continued into the 20th century, reflecting evolving domestic practices and design philosophies. Britannica notes that materials expanded to include plastic, metal, fiberglass, and even corrugated cardboard, demonstrating a broadening range of aesthetic possibilities alongside functional considerations. The rise of modernist design movements further influenced table aesthetics, prioritizing clean lines and minimalist construction over elaborate ornamentation. This shift coincided with the increasing availability of affordable mass-produced furniture, democratizing access to diverse table styles for broader segments of society. While earlier tables often signified social status through material choices like silver or exotic woods, 20th century designs increasingly emphasized functionality and accessibility. The table's journey into the workplace began long before spreadsheets and ergonomic chairs. While earlier tables primarily served dining or display purposes, their utility extended to workshops and laboratories as tools for calculation and record-keeping. As noted by the Whipple Museum of the History of Science, numerical values were organized in columns and rows on tablets as early as the 3rd millennium BCE in Mesopotamia, used to account for goods and livestock. These early tables weren't instruments in themselves, but rather fundamental resources for calculations, rulers and scales being convenient representations of tabular information. The importance of these tabulated records grew with advancements in mathematics and astronomy. Ptolemy's Almagest, a foundational text in astronomy, relied heavily on meticulously compiled tables to organize observations and facilitate calculations. In early modern Europe, the development of logarithms by John Napier revolutionized mathematical processes. Napier's treatise, published in 1614, provided a method for expressing large values as powers of a standard base, simplifying complex calculations when consulted through logarithm tables. Henry Briggs, recognizing the value of Napier's system, recalculated and widely distributed these tables, often as pocket-sized ready reckoners, crucial for commercial transactions during industrialization. These compact tools were essential for engineers calculating curve radii for railroads to ensure trains would not derail, a necessity arising from tighter curves designed to save space. They also aided in determining interest rates, exchange values, and assessing agricultural goods, all vital functions within an increasingly complex economy. The increasing complexity of commercial and scientific endeavors spurred further innovation in table design. While pocket-sized reckoners remained vital for field calculations, laboratories began to require more specialized surfaces. Britannica notes that by the mid-18th century, growing sophistication of taste led to an increasing degree of specialization in occasional table design, catering to specific functions beyond simple dining or measurement. This trend manifested as tables designed specifically for tea drinking and other emerging social customs. The exploitation of man-made materials later in the 19th and 20th centuries further diversified table forms, with surfaces constructed from plastics, metals, and even corrugated cardboard appearing alongside traditional wood constructions. These new materials offered advantages in terms of durability, cost, and ease of cleaning. Qualities increasingly valued in laboratory settings, where experiments often involved corrosive or staining substances. The increasing availability of standardized table designs also influenced laboratory practice. Britannica notes that by the mid-18th century, growing sophistication of taste led to an increasing degree of specialization in occasional table design, catering to specific functions beyond simple dining or measurement. This trend manifested as tables designed specifically for tea drinking and other emerging social customs. The exploitation of man-made materials later in the 19th and 20th centuries further diversified table forms, with surfaces constructed from plastics, metals, and even corrugated cardboard appearing alongside traditional wood constructions. These new materials offered advantages in terms of durability, cost, and ease of cleaning, qualities increasingly valued in laboratory settings, where experiments often involved corrosive or staining substances. The table, in its most basic form, is a piece of elevated furniture comprising a flat horizontal surface supported by one or more vertical legs. This deceptively simple design serves as a platform for work, dining, and display, making it an indispensable element of human civilization. Tracing the table's origins isn't about finding a single inventor, but charting the long evolution of a concept that began as a necessity and transformed into an object of specialized design. The earliest raised surfaces emerged from a need to protect food and materials from pests and moisture. Evidence from ancient Egypt and Mesopotamia indicates the use of low platforms and stone slabs dating back to the 3rd millennium BCE. These structures were often built directly into homes or temples, serving as work surfaces for food preparation or low altars for religious offerings. Materials used were heavy and locally sourced: stone, clay bricks, or rough-hewn timber blocks. The sheer weight and permanent placement of these early surfaces underscore their foundational role as static utilities within a space. The true transformation into a distinct piece of furniture occurred in ancient Greece and Rome. Greek culture introduced separate, four-legged tables specifically for dining, moving away from fixed platforms. These were initially low, designed to be used by diners reclining on couches. Roman artisans further developed this design with the mensa, a movable dining table that became standard in wealthier homes. Construction incorporated bronze, iron, and carved woods like maple and citrus. Leg designs included turned, tapered supports, sometimes crafted from marble or precious metals. This era marked the first major step toward functional specialization. Small round tables for serving drinks or displaying ornaments emerged alongside writing and gaming surfaces. Following the classical period, the medieval era introduced a new emphasis on portability due to multi-purpose halls and castles. The trestle table design arose as a solution, a long plank laid across 2 or 3 cross pieces that could be rapidly taken down and stacked when not in use. This innovation maximized floor space in rooms serving multiple functions. Legs were often flared for stability under heavy loads, laying the groundwork for future folding mechanisms like drop-leaf tables. The medieval emphasis on portability continued to influence furniture design into the Renaissance period. Tables with attached legs, joined by stretchers close to the floor, began appearing in the 15th century. These were fixed in size and heavy to move, but an innovation known as a drawtop allowed for expansion. The tabletop consisted of 3 sections. 2 could be slid under the central portion, effectively doubling the table's length when needed. This design reflected evolving social customs and a desire for greater flexibility within formal dining settings. Growing contact with Eastern cultures in the 18th century spurred interest in lacquered tables intended for occasional use. While large dining tables demonstrated limited stylistic change during this era, specialized forms proliferated to meet increasingly diverse needs, a trend that persisted well into the 20th century. The table's journey into the bedroom began subtly. A shift from its primary role as a communal dining surface to a more intimate function within private spaces. Following the medieval period, growing formality and evolving social customs spurred changes in furniture design. Tables with attached legs, joined by stretchers close to the floor, appeared in the 15th century. These were fixed in size and heavy to move, but an innovation known as a drawtop allowed for expansion. The tabletop consisted of 3 sections. 2 could be slid under the central portion, effectively doubling the table's length when needed. Increasing contact with Eastern cultures in the 18th century spurred interest in lacquered tables intended for occasional use. While large dining tables demonstrated limited stylistic change during this era, specialized forms proliferated to meet increasingly diverse needs. This trend extended into bedrooms, where smaller, more refined tables began to appear alongside beds. These were not merely utilitarian. They reflected a growing emphasis on personal comfort and the display of individual possessions within private chambers. The exploitation of man-made materials in the second half of the 20th century produced tables of such materials as plastic, metal, fiberglass, and even corrugated cardboard. The increasing availability of diverse materials and manufacturing techniques spurred experimentation with form and function throughout the 19th century. Britannia notes that tables began to reflect the general design tendencies of their period, exemplified by Elizabethan draw tables, supported by vase-shaped legs, terminating in Ionic capitals, indicative of contemporary decorative tastes. Similarly, a desire for opulence led to tables crafted from ebony with silver mountings or entirely covered in silver, as demonstrated by the table presented to Charles II. The 18th century also saw an increased interest in lacquered tables intended for occasional use, reflecting broader trends toward specialized furniture design. This specialization extended beyond dining areas. Social customs such as tea drinking fueled the development of smaller, purpose-built tables. By the second half of the 20th century, materials like plastic, metal, fiberglass, and even corrugated cardboard entered into table construction, expanding possibilities for both aesthetics and affordability. The 18th century also saw an increased interest in lacquered tables for occasional use. Britannia notes that growing sophistication of taste and higher standards of living led to an increasing degree of specialization in occasional table design. This trend manifested in a proliferation of smaller, purpose-built surfaces catering to specific activities beyond dining. Social customs, such as tea drinking, fueled the development of these specialized forms. The exploitation of man-made materials in the second half of the 20th century produced tables of such materials as plastic, metal, fiberglass, and even corrugated cardboard. The table's journey into outdoor spaces began with a shift away from purely interior functionality. Early raised surfaces, initially fixed architectural elements like low platforms and stone slabs in ancient Egypt and Mesopotamia, served primarily to protect goods from pests and moisture. These weren't designed for gardens but represented the earliest precursors to movable tables. As societies developed, particularly within ancient Greece and Rome, the concept of separate, four-legged tables emerged, initially used for dining. Roman artisans further refined this design, producing movable tables intended for use beyond enclosed spaces. The medieval period brought a new consideration: adaptability. The need to quickly transform large halls in castles from banqueting areas to other uses spurred the adoption of trestle tables, long planks supported by detachable cross pieces. This design prioritized portability and space efficiency, allowing for rapid assembly and disassembly. While not explicitly designed for gardens, this functionality foreshadowed later adaptations for outdoor use. The Renaissance saw a return to more permanent furniture, but also fueled a growing sophistication in design that would eventually influence outdoor table forms. Increasing contact with the East introduced lacquered tables intended for occasional use, reflecting an expanding range of specialized designs catering to evolving social customs. The increasing availability of new materials further spurred adaptation for outdoor use. Wrought iron, initially employed primarily for structural elements within buildings, began to appear in garden furniture during the late 19th century. Its inherent strength and resistance to rust made it suitable for enduring exposure to the elements, though early wrought iron tables often required considerable maintenance. Simultaneously, teak, a Southeast Asian hardwood prized for its natural oils that repel water and insects, gained popularity among those seeking durable outdoor furnishings. Teak's resilience allowed for designs less reliant on frequent upkeep compared to earlier wooden options. The integration of these materials reflected a growing desire for functional yet aesthetically pleasing garden spaces. By the early 20th century, manufacturers began exploring methods to enhance weather resistance beyond material selection alone. Early attempts involved applying protective coatings and varnishes to wood surfaces. However, these treatments proved often temporary and prone to degradation from sun exposure and moisture. The development of more durable finishes, though still limited in their effectiveness, marked a step toward tables designed specifically for sustained outdoor use, catering to an expanding market seeking comfortable and practical garden settings. While protective coatings offered some initial improvement, their limited durability prompted experimentation with alternative construction methods. The late 19th and early 20th centuries witnessed a shift toward employing multiple layers of wood adhered together with waterproof glues, a technique borrowed from shipbuilding to create composite tabletops. These laminated surfaces provided enhanced resistance to warping and cracking compared to solid timber alone. Simultaneously, advancements in metalworking facilitated the production of more complex wrought iron designs incorporating drainage holes and improved surface treatments intended to minimize rust formation. Though these efforts represented progress, complete impermeability remained elusive, and regular maintenance continued to be necessary for preserving the longevity of outdoor furnishings. The table's journey into educational settings began long before classrooms as we know them existed. Ancient civilizations, already employing tables for record-keeping and commerce, adapted these structures for instruction. In 3rd millennium BCE Mesopotamia, tablets utilizing columns and rows served not only to account for goods, but also likely facilitated early forms of teaching through structured organization. These weren't individual desks. Rather, they were communal surfaces used by students and instructors alike. Similarly, in antiquity, astronomer Ptolemy's handy tables, widely distributed, provided a clear presentation of astronomical data, a resource crucial for both scientific advancement and instruction. As societies evolved, so too did the table's role in learning. In early modern Europe, mathematical tables became essential tools for simplifying complex calculations, particularly after John Napier's discovery of logarithms in 1614. The need for accuracy spurred a tradition of recalculation and distribution, often as pocket-sized ready reckoners, demonstrating how tabular information was increasingly valued as an aid to understanding and problem-solving. These tables weren't confined to formal schools. They were vital tools for engineers calculating railroad curve radii, highlighting the table's utility in practical application alongside theoretical learning. Standard sets of values also became essential for conducting legitimate scientific experiments, reinforcing their importance within laboratories. The increasing complexity of scientific inquiry further spurred table development. As evidenced by a publication from 1938, statistical tables became essential for designing experiments and validating results, demonstrating their growing importance within laboratories. These resources facilitated standardized data comparison and analysis, contributing to the legitimacy of scientific endeavors. The proliferation of these specialized tables reflected broader societal shifts toward greater specialization in both labor and knowledge dissemination. While earlier tables often served communal functions, this era saw a rise in more targeted tools designed for specific tasks or professions, a trend that would continue into the industrial age. The need for portability also remained relevant. Engineers required compact reference materials to accompany instruments like theodolites when calculating curve radii for railroad construction, underscoring the table's adaptability across diverse fields. The proliferation of specialized tables extended into burgeoning fields like chemistry and physics, where precise measurements demanded dedicated apparatus. Britannica notes that by the 18th century, increasing sophistication fostered specialization in occasional table design, catering to evolving social customs such as tea drinking. This trend manifested in a diverse range of forms beyond the traditional dining or writing surfaces. For example, specialized tables emerged to support scientific instruments or accommodate new rituals. The exploitation of man-made materials further broadened possibilities, with tables appearing constructed from plastics, metals, and even corrugated cardboard, a shift reflecting advancements in material science and changing aesthetic preferences. These innovations underscored a broader societal move towards greater functional differentiation within the domestic sphere. The table's journey has been one of constant adaptation and refinement, extending far beyond its initial function as a simple raised surface. As we've seen, from Mesopotamia to modern laboratories, the form and purpose of the table have mirrored broader shifts in human culture and technological advancement. Though initially rudimentary platforms for food preparation or religious offerings, tables evolved into specialized objects reflecting changing social customs and scientific needs. The Roman era marked a significant turning point, with artisans transforming the table into an object of both utility and artistry. The development of the mensa, a movable dining table, signaled a shift toward greater specialization and aesthetic consideration. This trend continued through subsequent centuries, as evidenced by the medieval trestle table's ingenious design for space efficiency and later Renaissance tables that became canvases for intricate craftsmanship. The Industrial Revolution fundamentally reshaped production methods, democratizing access to tables of various designs. Yet, even amidst mass manufacturing, the core principles established millennia ago, a horizontal surface supported by a vertical structure, remained central to the table's enduring form. The legacy of early innovations like the Roman mensa and the medieval trestle continues to resonate in contemporary furniture design, demonstrating that the table's story is not one of invention, but rather of continuous evolution, driven by human ingenuity. The increasing sophistication of taste and higher standards of living spurred a diversification of table design, catering to specialized functions beyond mere dining. Growing contact with the East influenced furniture styles, leading to tables lacquered for occasional use. Britannica notes that while large dining tables exhibited fewer stylistic changes, this period saw an expansion in specialized forms driven by evolving social customs like tea drinking. The exploitation of man-made materials, such as plastic and metal, further broadened the possibilities for table construction during the 20th century. Though these innovations altered material composition, they did not fundamentally alter the core design principles established centuries prior. Tables continued to serve as platforms for work, dining, and display, adapting to changing needs while retaining their essential form, a horizontal surface supported by a vertical structure. The legacy of earlier designs resonated in contemporary furniture, demonstrating that tables remain enduring objects reflecting human ingenuity and cultural progress. The increasing availability of mass-produced tables also fostered experimentation with new forms and functions, as evidenced by Britannica's description of specialized designs catering to evolving social customs like tea drinking. While large dining tables exhibited fewer stylistic changes, this period saw an expansion in specialized forms driven by these shifting needs. The introduction of man-made materials further broadened the possibilities for table construction during the 20th century. However, as noted previously, these innovations altered material composition rather than fundamentally altering established design principles. Whipple Museum records that tables continue to serve as platforms for work, dining, and display, adapting to changing needs while retaining their essential form, a horizontal surface supported by a vertical structure. The legacy of earlier designs resonated in contemporary furniture, demonstrating that tables remain enduring objects, reflecting human ingenuity and cultural progress.